we're going to start looking at order of operations. And it's something we've talked about last year, but now that everybody's able to do the positives and the negatives and things like that, I think we'll talk about this one more time because it's a little bit different when we have our integers, when we have our positives and negatives. Last year we would have just worked with positives and not negatives, okay? So our order of operations, and this is one thing that during this section, I would stop it. I would write these things down in your notebooks so you've got a good record of this, okay? The first thing you're always going to do is you're going to want to, if there's a division bar, okay? Division bar is going to look something like this. It's going to go straight across like this with stuff on the top and stuff on the bottom. You want to keep the stuff on the top and the stuff on the bottom separate until the very end. Then you're going to actually divide it out. It's almost like a fraction bar too, but it means division. So if you see one of these things, do everything on the top in the order, do everything on the bottom in the order, and then divide it out. Number 2, simplify any powers or roots that you have. So if you have like 5 to the third power, do that. If you have like the square root of 16, do that. If you have, and I know something we talked about last year was factorials. If you have like 3 factorial, do that before you do anything else. Get it to a regular number instead of all the other stuff. Number 3, if you've got something in parentheses, do that. Number 4, this is something that people always get confused. Which one comes first, multiply or divide? It doesn't matter, as long as it's from left to right. So if your first thing is multiply and then divide, do them in that order. If divide comes first and then multiply, do them in that order. It's from left to right. And the last one is add, subtract from left to right. After you get done with all the multiplications and all the divisions, you come down to this step, plus and minus from left to right. Now we're going to do quite a few example problems here that I'm going to show you. And one thing that I'm going to ask to see is your work on this. I'm going to give you a near foolproof way to do this, and I do expect you to show work like this, and you'll understand what I'm talking about when we start the problem. So pay close attention to the certain steps that I'm taking here. All right, take some time to get the first problem copied down here, and we're just going to follow the steps. I'm going to show you what's probably the most efficient way to do this. Okay. I would almost say that it's a foolproof way to do it. I'm just going to go straight down my list of 5 here. Okay, division bar. We don't have one, so skip number 1. Okay, exponents, powers. We can add in factorials. There's other things we can add in, but we don't have any of those things. We don't have anything there to simplify. Okay, parentheses. We don't have any parentheses, so let's go down to number 4. Multiply and divide from left to right. Okay, we've got a couple of divides, so we got to do all those first before we can do any add or subtracts. So I'm going to just start with 45 divided by 9. My foolproof way of doing this is do 45 divided by 9, which would be 5. Okay, that equals 5 right there. Anytime you complete a problem and you've used the numbers, get rid of them. Okay, I'm going to cross that out. Okay, I did the 45 divided by 9, and then I think the easiest way to do it is just bring everything else straight down. So the minus sign comes down, the 21 comes down, the divide comes down, the 7 comes down. Okay, to save confusion. You could also just erase that maybe and just stick that 5 in there because that is 5. That represents 5. Okay, next. We've still got to do, we're still on step 4, we still have to do all the multiply and divide before we can do anything else. So I'm not going to do 5 minus 21 yet. I've got to do all the division first. Okay, I don't have any times, I'm doing the division. 21 divided by 7 is 3. Okay, so I use that. I'm going to cross it off. I'm going to bring everything else straight down. Minus, there's our 5. Now all we have left is a subtraction, and that's the last thing on our list, plus and minus, so I can just do 5 minus 3, and your answer is 2. The answer to this problem would be 2. Strategies I used, I followed my order of operations. I went down like almost like a checklist. And then every time I used something, I crossed it out, brought everything straight down to save on confusion. Make sure you don't use things more than once. All right, here's the next problem. We've got -3 outside of a parenthesis, 9 plus 2, all over, or division bar, -11, and then at the end we have a subtract 2. Okay, some things I'll point out here. If you ever have a number right outside of a parenthesis, it's always multiplication. Okay, so I'm even going to stick this in. I'm going to stick this little times sign in right there. That dot means multiplication. That is multiplication. So do not forget that, because that's going to make your problem incorrect if you do anything other than that. Okay, now let's go down our checklist. Keep the top and bottom of the division bar separate, and then do that last. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to do everything on top of this division bar. We're going to do, and we don't have anything to do on the bottom, but we would do everything on the bottom if there was something to do. Then we're going to divide it out. Okay, so we are going to do that. So let's go on to the next step. Simplify any powers or square roots. We don't have any. No powers, no square roots. Now we have to do parentheses. And this is what we have in parentheses here. Okay, we have 9 plus 2. So what I'm going to do with this 9 plus 2 is, I know that's 11. So down here, I'm going to bring everything down. That's 11. My -3 still stays here. That times sign still stays there. Divide by -11 still stays there. And then I've got my -2 still stays there. We just brought everything straight down. Okay. Let's see here. So we do have these parentheses, but if there's only one thing in them, I mean, you don't have to worry about anything. Okay. So we need to go down to number 4. Multiply and divide from left to right. Okay. So remember, we already said we're going to worry about this division bar last. So we have to do the -3 times 11. Okay. Remember, we stuck that little times symbol in here right there. If it's a number right outside a parenthesis, it's multiplication. -3 times 11 is -33. So now we have -33. We use those numbers, and I could have crossed it off here too. Would be a good thing. Put that division bar back, -11, and then put our -2 here. Okay. Now we want to do the division bar as soon as we get a number on the top and a number on the bottom. We want to complete that division bar. Okay. So -33 divide. Looks like a fraction, but it can also be divide. -33 divided by -11 is going to be a positive number, because we have two negatives we're dividing by, and that is just going to be 3. So I use that. Bring everything else straight down. And then simple, all we have left is 3 minus 2. 3 minus 2 is 1.